So this is the video, guys, for the quiz 4 review and practice. So first of all, this says, how do you determine if a relation is a function? So let's just draw a function here. So here's my xy coordinate, xy, okay? So if I were to draw, for example, a parabola, right? So if I were to draw a parabola here, the way that I determine if it's a relation, if the relation is a function, is I do the vertical line test, right? So I can draw a vertical line anywhere. If it intersects it only one time, then this is a function. So vertical line test is how I determine if the relation's a function, right? Now, how do I determine if the function's inverse is a function? Okay, that's when we do our horizontal line test. Now notice here, this intersects that function twice, right? So we do a horizontal line test to determine if the inverse is a function. In this case, the answer would be no. So we're doing a horizontal line test. If I could spell horizontal, y'all, that would be good. So the horizontal line test tells us if its inverse is going to be a function. And again, that's of the original function. So now, this is find the inverse of the function, that are the values from the graph. So I'm going to plot -3, that's 0, -3, 0. I'm going to find another one, that's -2, 1. And then here's another one right there. 1, 2, right? 1, 2. So how do we write the inverse as a table? We would swap the x and y, right? Which is why they have the y where the x is and the x where the y would normally be. But I'm going to go ahead and swap that back to xy, okay? Remember, this is our inverse function, right? So that's f to the -1 of x, okay? So that means we're going to put our 0 here and our -3 there, our 1 and our -2, and our 2 and our 1. So we just swap the x and y, okay? So now the other thing I want to encourage you guys to do when you're doing this is go ahead and find the inverse of f of x equals the square root of x plus 3. To do that, we swap the x and y, right? So this is going to be x here. That equals y plus 3. Now what we would do to get rid of that square root, square it, right? Okay. So now this cancels out that. So we get x squared equals y plus 3. So then what would our inverse function be? It would be x squared minus 3. That's equal to f to the -1 of x, okay? And again, we could do our horizontal and vertical line test here to determine if the inverse is a function. The original is a function because the vertical line test tells us it's a function. And if we do the horizontal line anywhere, it does not intersect the graph more than once. So the inverse is also going to be a function. So what I want to talk to you about now is how can I check these values? So can't I check these values right here to see if I did this right? So what is 0? So we'll do 0 squared minus 3. So isn't that -3? It is. Okay. So now what would happen if I was only given this? Could I check my original function to see if it was correct? Yes. Why? Because then I could just reverse the numbers and say -3, 0, right? And then plug them back in here. So let's do this. -3 plus 3, does that equal 0? So -3 plus 3 is what? 0. So the square root of 0 is what? 0 does equal 0. So it is correct. Okay. So that's another way to double check to make sure that things are correct. All right. So number 2 says the function which represents the inverse. Which one? So here again, we're going to rewrite this. So I'm going to say x equals -2 plus the square root of y plus 3. Remember, we're swapping x and y. So we're going to add the 2 to both sides. That's going to be x plus 2 equals the square root of y plus 3. We're going to square both sides to get rid of the square root. So that gives me x plus 2 squared equals y plus 3. So then we're just going to subtract 3 from both sides, right? So that's going to be x plus 2 squared minus 3, and that equals y. So that's going to be my inverse function, okay? And so which one is that? That is C, right, y'all? Yes. There it is, okay? The next one says find the inverse of the function, okay? So again, when I'm going to put my, remember, this is y, so we're going to swap it. X equals 1/2 y plus 6. So we're going to subtract the 6 from both sides. That's x minus 6. Equals 1/2. Y, how do I get rid of a 1/2? Multiply by its reciprocal, right? So this is going to be times 2. So that would be 2 times x minus 6. That is going to be my inverse function. So that's going to be f to the -1 of x. That is my inverse function right there. So recall, when we do f of g of x and g of f of x, if we get x as our answer, that's when we know that these are inverses. So when I do f of g of x, if that equals x, then I know that these are inverses. Okay, so that's what we're going to do right now, is we're going to put our g of x function, this one, in for that x right there. So I'm going to say 4 times the square root, and I'm going to put that in parentheses, x over 4 squared minus 7, and then we got that plus 7. Y'all see that plus 7? That's still under our radical, right? Okay, so what do you guys notice? Do you notice what I noticed? We got a negative 7 and a positive 7. Those two are going to cancel each other out, right? So then we've got 4, and we've got the x over 4 squared. So what is the square root of a square? Yes, they cancel each other out, right? So we're left with 4 times x over 4. So isn't 4 the inverse of the 4 in the bottom? They are. So these cancel each other out. So we are left with x. So when we do f of g of x, we do get x. So that one works, but let's try the other way. So now we're going to do g of f of x. And remember, you got to do both because one may work and the other one not. Okay, so this time we're going to go the opposite direction, aren't we? So let me show you all what that means. That means we're going to take this whole function right here and we're going to put it in for that x. Okay, so that means we're going to do, I'm going to put my parentheses here because I'm going to square whatever's in there, right? So that's going to be 4 times my square root of x plus 7 over 4. So, and then minus the 7 out here. So question, what happens to the 4's? Yes, they cancel each other out, right? So what are we going to be left with? We're going to be left with the square root of x plus 7 squared minus 7. Well, what is x? What happens to that square root and that square? Again, they cancel each other out. So this is going to be x plus 7 minus 7. Well, the positive 7 and negative 7 cancel each other out. So once again, we're just left with x. And if we get x's for both, which we did, then this checks out and they are inverses, okay? So let's check out number 5 as well. So here again, we're going to do f of g of x. So we're going to take this function and we're going to put it in for that x, okay? So that means I got my 1/2, and then I'm going to take the cube root of 2 times x minus 6 to the 3rd power. And then I got a plus 6 out here. Y'all see that? That's outside this time, okay? So this is going to be 1/2 the cube root, and I'm going to go ahead and split these up, of 2, and the cube root of x minus 6 cubed, right? Because we're going to end up cubing these, yes? Or cubing that. That was cubed. Sorry, I put that in the wrong place, y'all. This is a cubed, right? This was cubed. So when we see this, and then we still got our plus 6 out here. Sorry, got my all my lines going crazy places, y'all. So then we've got our plus 6 out here. So notice here that this cancels this. So this is going to be 1/2 times the cube root of 2. And then we've got our x minus 6 plus 6, right? So these cancel each other out. So we still got our 1/2 and then the cube root of 2 and then our x. So do we have only an x? No. Okay. So these are not inverses. Okay. I don't know what happened there, but that t kind of messed up, y'all. So these are not inverses. That's all you really need to know. And the way we know that is because we got something in addition to the x. Okay. All right, so for our next one, a tank contains some water. The function W represents the relationship between T, time, and minutes, and the amount of water in the tank in liters. The equation W of T equals 80 minus 2.5 T defines the function. Which answer choice represents the inverse, WT, of how many minutes it will take for 47.5 liters of water to drain out of the tank? So our original equation was W of T, right? So I'm just going to put the W there because I think it'll help y'all better. So I'm just going to put the big letter W, or just the W. W equals 80 minus 2.5t. So what I told my students is we just solve for the other variable. So the first thing we're going to do is subtract the 80. So w minus 80 equals negative 2.5t. Then we're going to divide both sides by the negative 2.5t, right? Or the negative 2.5, sorry. So t is going to be equal to w minus 80 divided by negative 2.5. So which of these was the correct answer? So I want you guys to notice something. So with B, we have w minus 80, but it's not divided by the negative 2.5. So if we were to negate the top and make the bottom positive, okay, that would give us minus w plus 80 divided by 2.5. Y'all see that? So which one matches now? Yes, it would be A, okay? So that one's a little tricky because of the way it's written, okay? And the fact that we're dividing by a negative. And it's going to change the signs of everything in the top, okay? So this one says, use the graph to answer 1 and 2. What is the domain and range of the graph? So first of all, I want to look at this point where the graph starts. And that's at negative 2, comma 5, right? So that's going to be my x and y, my h and my k, right? So h and k affect our domain and range. So when we talk this through, we want to look at what direction is the graph headed, right? So, wow, I don't know what that was, but we'll move it out of the way. So, okay. So again, look right here. Our graph is headed to the right and down, right? So if the graph is headed to the right, then our domain arrow should be pointed to the right. So these obviously can't be the answer. Okay, now let's talk about our range. So what's happening to our range? Where is it going? Is it going from... So we got negative infinity down here, and then where's it go up to? What is the highest value of our range right here, y'all? At 5, right? So when we talk about our range, we're always going to talk about if it's written this way, guys. We're going to go from the smallest number, sorry, not negative 5, but positive 5. This was 5 right here, y'all. I just wanted you guys to see that. So it's going to go from negative infinity to 5, okay? So that's our domain. Then it says, which statement is true about the graph? So as x approaches infinity... is y, that's what f of x approaches, no, that would be negative infinity, right? So that's not true. Then it says the interval of decrease is from where? So where did the graph start over here? What's our x value over here? This is 5, right? And then where did it go to? Didn't it go to infinity? So, and is the graph decreasing? That's the other question. We're going to jump on the graph over here at the left, and we're going to write it. Yes, it's decreasing, so that's true. But it's not decreasing from 5 to negative infinity. It's decreasing from 5 to positive infinity. So that's not true as well. Then as x approaches negative infinity, as we go this direction, y'all, again, what is the y value of our graph right there? That's 5. So that's not true, right? So this answer should be 5. So that's not true. Then it says the interval of decrease is from what? So look right here. What's the interval of decrease? From negative 2, that's where it starts, and then where does it go to? What is the x value over there? It's infinity, right? So this is our true answer right here. And remember, intervals have to do with, these are x values, guys, okay? Whereas our, in behaviors, that's what these x approaches, these have to do with our y values, okay? So remember that. All right, now, I put these on there as some extra practice, but I'm not going to do them in the video. So if you guys want this, then you need to talk to your teachers, okay? All right, so this says the graph to answer 3 and 4. Use this graph, okay? So what is the domain and range again? So here's our starting point. So that's going to be what? 1, 0. So is our domain starts at what? Our x values. So our x values start where? At 1, and where do they go? Where's the arrow pointed? To infinity, right? So this would be 1 to infinity. That's our domain. And what about our range? So what happened to our y values? Where do they start? Our range starts at what? 0, and where does it go to? It gets bigger, right? So it's going to be greater than or equal. So this is going to be y, sorry. So it's going to be y is, because that's the way it was written over there, y'all. Y is greater than or equal to 0, right? So it's just getting bigger, right? Going up over here. And we're headed towards positive infinity here. Okay, so that means this should be 1 infinity. So these two are not correct. And then we've got our y is greater than 0. So y is greater than 0. So the B is the answer. Okay, so which statement is false about the graph? So as we approach infinity right here, is f of x approaching infinity? Up here. Yes, it is. So this is true. Again, it's asking us false. The interval of increase is from 1 to where? Yes, infinity. Y'all see that? Because infinity is to the right. So that's true. As x approaches negative infinity, that would be right here as we're going left on the graph, is f of x 1. Is the y value 1? No, it's 0. Y'all see that? So that's our incorrect answer. Let's just double check with the last one, D. The graph has a 0 of 1. Yes, it does, because it's crossing, it's touching the x-axis right there at 1, isn't it? So that is also true. So our answer here was C. All right, so given the equation 5 times the square root of 1/4 x minus 3, which answer choice describes the transformations that occur? Okay, so what's happening with this 5 right here, y'all? Isn't that a vertical stretch by 5? Okay. What about this 1/4 right here? Wouldn't we change that to 4? Yes, so that would be horizontal, right? So that would be 4. So we're going to say horizontal what? That's going to be a horizontal stretch by 4, right? And then what about that minus 3 right here? So what's that going to tell us? Isn't that going to be 3 what? Right. Remember, it's always opposite because it's a positive 3, okay? So then where it says which answer choices describe the transformations that occurred. So vertical stretch of a factor of 5, yes. Vertical stretch, so all of these are true. Then it says a horizontal shrink by a factor of 1/4. No, that's not true, right? Okay, then it says 3. So we're looking at the last two statements down here for C and D, right? So 3 left or 3 right? No, it's 3 right. So our answer was D, okay? Then this next one says describe the transformations that occur. So what does this negative out front mean, guys? What does that right there mean? Isn't that a reflection over the x-axis because it's outside the radical, right? What do we do with stuff underneath the radical? Yes, we change it, right? So this is going to be 1/6, right? Because we're going to change it. We're gonna write the inverse of it. So that's going to be a horizontal what? Horizontal shrink or compression by 1/6. Okay, what's that minus 1 outside mean? This right here. Doesn't that mean down 1? Okay? So hopefully you guys have all that stuff down by now. All right, this one says solve. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to divide both sides by 6. So that's going to give me 2x plus 8 to the 1/4 power. And that's going to be equal to 2. So how do I get rid of the 1/4, guys? How do I get rid of the 1/4 power? I'll put that up there a little bit so I can actually see this 1/4. Yes, I got to multiply by its inverse, right, which is 4. So now that's all gone, and I get, I'm going to write it over here, 2x plus 8 equals 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So then I'm going to subtract that 8 from both sides. So 2x is equal to, what, 8, and divide both sides by 2. So my x is equal to 4, okay? And then you can plug that back in there. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 plus 8 is 16, right? And 16 to the 1/4 power, we just discovered that is 2, isn't it? And 6 times 2 is 12, so you can check it by plugging it back in. All right, so for this next one, it says which values of x satisfy the equation, okay? So let's go ahead and solve this algebraically. So I'm going to put 3x squared minus 8x plus 14 is equal to 2x minus 3. So I'm going to square both sides first, okay? I'm We'll talk to you all about some other ways of doing this in just a second. So this is going to give me 3x squared minus 8x plus 14 equals, we're going to square this, use the box if you have to. That would be 4x squared. 2x times negative 3x is negative 6x times 2 is negative 12x. And then negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. So now we're going to just move stuff to one side. Okay, so I'm going to subtract the 3x squared. And I'm going to add 8x. And I'm going to subtract 14. So I'm going to subtract 3x squared, add 8x, and subtract 14. So that's gone, that's gone, that's gone. So I'm left with 0 equals, isn't that going to be x squared minus 4x? And what is that, y'all? Plus 5? No, minus 5. Okay, so here's our factors then of negative 5. What are our factors of negative 5 that add up to be negative 4? So wouldn't that be minus 5 and plus 1? So yes, and those are some of the terms we got, right? So this would be x equals 5, and this would be x equals negative 1. So obviously that can't be our answer because negative 1 doesn't work. That's not negative 1, right? So we want to check our 5 though. So we're going to have to put our 5 back up in there and our negative 1. I don't even see negative 1. Well, 5 and negative 1 are a choice. So let's just go ahead and plug the 5 up in there. Okay, so we're going to do 3 times 5 squared minus 8 times 5 plus 14. And then we're going to take the square root of that, and we're going to see if that's equal to 2 times our 5, right? Minus 3. So this is going to be 3 times 25 minus 40 plus 14. That's going to be 75 minus 40 plus 14. So that's going to be 35 plus 14. That's going to be 49, right? What's the square root of 49, y'all? 7. So 2 times 5 is 10 minus 3. Isn't that 7? So 7 does equal 7, right? So the 7 equals the 7, y'all. So this one works out. So we know that this is true. So let's check out the negative 1 now, okay? So we're going to, once again, we're going to put 3 times negative 1 squared minus 8 times negative 1 plus 14. And we want to see, is that equal to 2 times negative 1 minus 3, okay? So this is going to be 3 times 1 plus 8 plus 14. Is that going to be equal to negative 2 minus 3? Isn't that going to be negative 5 right there? Well, I can tell you already that's not going to work because the square root of any number is not going to be a negative number. So let's just finish it though. This is 3 plus 8 plus 14. That's 11 plus 14. So that's 25. So the square root of 25 is what? 5. Does 5 equal negative 5? No. So that is not an answer. Okay. So our answer was what? The 5. Okay. Couldn't be this one because that was actually not that one either. Right. So both solutions don't work there. So the answer was B. Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next one. Use the information to answer the following question. Okay. So I'm going to actually... This question says solve for y. Okay, so we're going to take this and we're going to put it in exponential form. So this can be x to the, remember, our index is our denominator. So it's 8 over 3 over, and remember, this is 4 over 1 times 1 over 3. So this is going to be x to the what? 4 over 3. What do we do with something in the denominator? Don't we bring it up to the top? We subtract it, right? So that's going to be minus 4 over 3. So that's going to be x to the 4 over 3, right? Because 8 minus 4 is. So now my question for y'all, and notice this is asking us to solve for y, right? So that's going to be our 4/3. So our answer was C. Now I want to ask y'all, if we were to write the answer here, how would we write it if it asked us to write it in radical form? Okay, so would we not write our x under here? That's our base, right? And where are we putting the 3 and where are we putting the 4? Okay, so we're putting the 3 as the index and we're putting the 4 as the exponent. Y'all remember this? Hopefully so, because we've been doing it over and over and over again. All right, so number 10 says, which formula is equivalent to d is equal to the cube root of s plus 4? notice all of these are solving for s, okay? So I'm going to rewrite the equation. D is equal to the cube root of s plus 4. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. So this is going to be d minus 4 equals the cube root of s. How do I get rid of a cube root? Yes, I cube both sides, don't I? So now this and this are gone, right? The whole thing's gone. So we're left with our s. So s is equal to d minus 4 cubed. And that's our answer right there, okay?